Hey guys, in today's video, I'm going to talk about sprint review meetings and how a product manager should run them, mainly because many product managers are not running in the way it should. So if you are interested in that and are open to doing that self-assessment, keep watching. Now, before I get into the specifics of what you should be doing, I want to do some groundwork here of what, why, when. So let's do that first. First, what? What is a sprint review meeting? It is an event or a meeting in Agile which happens at the end of every iteration or a sprint which involves all of the development team. So the product manager, development team, some cases Scrum Master, and primarily the stakeholders who are the part of the meeting. Now, for those who do not know, Agile is one of the most famous software development methodologies. If that is something that you want to know more about, do let me know via comments. I can do a separate video for it. But this one is specifically focused for sprint review meeting, and sprint review meeting is one of the event in the whole Agile development cycle. Now that we know what it is, now why? Why is there a sprint review meeting? So the purpose of this meeting is to be able to demo the work that the development team has accomplished in that particular sprint or that iteration, gather their feedback, and then be able to update the product backlog based on that. Now, it is not a status update or a project management meeting which you have to do. It is mainly done for three reasons. One, showcasing the tangible progress. So since there are these user stories created in the sprint, which means there is something that a user can utilize. So to be able to showcase the tangible progress is the first reason. Second, gathering the feedback. Now, I did say this meeting is for the stakeholders. So we gather the feedback from the stakeholders in this particular meeting. And then third, collaborating with the stakeholders to make sure the product meets its needs. So the reason this is important is because we are doing these demos and showcasing the progress to the stakeholders to make sure that their product needs are being met with. So these are the main three things which should happen in a product review meeting. Now, who should own it? This is $1 million question, which many people unfortunately are not too clear on. Who should own it is the product manager. Simple. Who should own it is a product manager. It's not the development team. It's not the senior member of development team. It's not the Scrum Master. It's not the product designer. It's not the engineering manager. It's not the Agile coach. No. It should be driven by a product manager. Why? The reason being that this meeting is being done for stakeholders. Like if someone in the team wanted to see the demo, they could either listen to it in daily stand-up meeting or some other meeting. There was no need for a sprint review meeting. There was no need for a review meeting. Now, this meeting is for stakeholders. We are talking to stakeholders. We are telling them this is the progress that we've made. And the reason it's product manager's responsibility is because managing the stakeholders is the responsibility of a product manager. Product manager needs to make sure they are gathering all the requirements, including stakeholders in these, and then after every iteration, be it 2 week, 3 week, how many ever long window of your sprint is, after that particular iteration, people in the team, including yourself, you are able to demo the progress of the work to the stakeholders. That is why it is something that is owned by a product manager. It is led by a product manager. Other people are participants. The one who is supposed to lead the meeting is a product manager. I have emphasized that enough, but this is really important because many people don't know that, and they should, because otherwise the whole purpose of the meeting is getting killed. If you are just talking and showcasing your code in the meeting, it doesn't make any sense. There is no point of doing the review meeting. Stakeholders do not understand the code that you're demoing. You need to be able to talk to them in the user language, and who's going to do that? Product manager. That is why it is important for a product manager to lead this meeting, own this meeting, so that even if there are little bit technical discussions happening in the sprint review meeting, which is quite obvious, many times, there are some things which are quite technical, product manager need to translate those things to the stakeholders so that they can understand it. They need to be that translator. That is why it has to be owned, it has to be led by a product manager. Now, hopefully that has become clear on what it is, why do we do it, who owns it. Now let's see on what should a product manager do in this meeting. It's a 7-step process. First, setting the agenda. Now, what does that mean? Like, since I've been repeatedly saying that it's for stakeholders, it's important to know that an agenda is set at the beginning of the meeting. Stakeholders, they are doing their own works in their own times. They are not attending the sprint meetings. They're not part of daily stand-up meeting. They don't talk to anyone in the development team. They maybe talk to product managers sometime, but no one on the product and engineering team, they don't talk about it, right? They only come once in 2 weeks or once at the end of sprint or iteration when there is something for them to listen to, right? So it's very important for a product manager to set that context, set that agenda, right? This is what our sprint was. This is what our sprint goal was. And this is what we have achieved. This is what we have not achieved, and we will be doing it in the next iteration. So that setting up of agenda is really, really, really important for a product manager to provide at the beginning of the meeting, so that stakeholders know. Like, it's not like they come into a meeting and then they just, maybe do their own work and they're listening, oh, I'm not understanding what's happening, and they don't bother asking questions. To avoid that situation, because we want to gather their feedback, so they need to understand everything. They need to understand. You have to sit on top of their head and say, like, you have to understand. For this to happen, it's very important that the product manager sets the agenda at the beginning. They set that baseline. Okay, stakeholders, this is what we have been doing. If needed, give like a project overview at the beginning. If they are not aware of, they should ideally be aware. This should not be the first time they are hearing about it. They should already be in the loop when the requirements were being set. But when it comes to showcasing the progress, that's why this meeting is happening and that's why they are here. So setting that agenda is really, really important first step for a product manager. Now, step number 2 is prepare for the demo. Now, this doesn't only apply to product manager, it applies to the whole team. But since product manager's responsibility is sprint review meeting, as we've been talking repeatedly, it's important for them to talk with their team before the sprint review and prepare for the demo. If there are some things that product manager has to talk about, they need to prepare for that themselves. But they need to talk with the engineers in the team and say them, we have a demo tomorrow, day after, whenever the preparation is happening. This is what we have to talk about. Like, this is what the sprint goal was. These are the user stories we have done. And this is the progress. This is the demo. Like, we want to avoid a situation wherein engineers are opening up the code and they are, talking about it and no one in the meeting understands. If they want to do that, they can have a separate technical review with technical stakeholders. This meeting is not for that. Okay. So it's important that preparation of demo happens, because again, I said, you only have that half an hour or 45 minutes, how much ever time you are dedicating for sprint review to be able to demo it, and you want to utilize it. It's not a one-way communication wherein the engineers are demoing, no one is understanding. The whole point of the meeting is getting killed. So that's why that preparation is important, and whose responsibility is this? Product manager. They have to talk with the engineering team. They have to tell them, look, this is what the goal was, this is what we have to demo, this is what we have to talk about, this is what is not required. Maybe you have done some research which was technical about, researching about APIs. You don't need to talk to stakeholders about it. So you have to make sure everybody prepares for demo on what they should demo and what they should not demo. The step number 3 is communicate expectations. So I think in step 2, I have said that while the PM makes sure that engineers are preparing for the demo, there is a little bit of expectation setting happening with them. But expectation setting needs to happen with the stakeholders as well. As I said, stakeholders are not in the development space or the mind space, literal mind space. They are just coming to the meeting maybe after months, and then they come after every 2 to 3 weeks. They are not in loop on a day-to-day basis because they are doing their own work, right? So it's important you communicate the expectation to them. Look, we are taking out this 30 minutes of time from our schedule. It's important that you are contributing, that you are an active participant in the meeting. This is what the expectation is, and that this is what we would like to have from you. We want to gather your feedback, so make sure you're listening. Make sure you are raising whatever points you need to. If you don't want to raise it in the meeting because you're not comfortable with the engineering team being in the room, let me know afterwards. But it's important that we hear your feedback. That's the whole point of this entire meeting. So that expectation setting needs to happen with the stakeholders as well. It's not only for the development team, it's for the stakeholders as well. So who has to do that? It's the product manager, because product manager is the one who's sitting between development team and the stakeholders. So product manager needs to make sure the expectation setting happens across the board. Now, step number 4 is conducting the demo. So after you've done all the preparation, after you have set the agenda, after you have clearly communicated the expectation, now is the time you've got to demo the particular thing. So it's important, again, product manager needs to drive it. What does it mean to drive the meeting? To make sure that everybody is getting the chance to talk about the stuff they have done. So that time boxing is going to be important, because many times what happens is someone in the team who's demoing, they get too much in the flow, and they might take the entire maybe 20 minutes of the 30 minutes, because 10 minutes are dedicated for questions and answers. They take the entire 20 minutes and the other team members do not get chance. I think product manager needs to sort of police the meeting as well, to make sure that everybody is getting the chance to be able to demo their stuff. That is why that preparation of demo is important, that the demo is concise and clear. Just get to the point, just cut to the chase, simple. This is what we have done. You don't need to explain everything behind it. Just show them what we have done and then let them ask questions. When they ask questions, then you can get into the details. So being able to demo in the meeting, if there's something for product manager to talk about, let them talk about, but it's primarily engineers who are demoing the work that they have done. So that is what happens, and obviously product manager needs to make sure that stakeholders are active participants, not passive. They're not just sitting there doing their own work and not listening to what we're talking about. You need to make sure you ask the stakeholder that, is it clear? Do you have any question? Does it meet your use case? Is there something else you were expecting? So you have to make sure they are active in the meeting and you're able to gather their feedback. Now, step number 5 is facilitate feedback. So again, something similar to what I said in the earlier point, that you have to make sure that you are gathering the feedback. That's the whole point of this meeting. So you have to facilitate it. You have to ask questions to the stakeholders. Right? So ask the right questions and then you will get the right answers. Then you will get the most out of it, because you don't want to be in a situation wherein you are 3 months into the product development, you release a particular feature and then stakeholder comes back, oh, I didn't want this is going to have a very negative impact and stuff like that. And then you can say like, that's the whole reason we were doing sprint review every 2 weeks, so that we could get your feedback. But then they were not listening in the meeting. Right? So you have to avoid that situation. And how do you avoid? You have to facilitate that conversation, facilitate that feedback. You have to repeatedly ask them that, how is this feature? Does it meet your expectations? This is how it fits in the, big ecosystem of the product vision and strategy that we have. So you need to have those conversations so that stakeholders are very much involved and you're able to gather their feedback. If they've said, yeah, this is wonderful, cool, all right. But if they have said, oh, maybe is this something that we can change? So you make a note of it. You don't commit in the meeting saying, all right, tomorrow I'm going to make this change and you can check tomorrow. No, you just make a note of it and you're gathering the feedback. And after that, whatever the process of triaging it is, that's what you do. But gathering that feedback is a very important step that product manager needs to own. Now, step number 6 is update the product backlog. So after you've gathered feedback, you have to make sure all of that feedback is documented somewhere. Jira is the best place wherein all other user stories are there. If you're using some other tool, whatever the equivalent of Jira is, that becomes it. But wherever all your user stories from where the development team is picking up, that place is the best place to gather that feedback and document that feedback. Put all of the feedback in there and then discuss with the development team. If you need to triage it yourself first, and then after that discuss it with the team and refine it and then pick it up for development. And then in the subsequent sprint review meetings, you can let stakeholder know that this is the change we have done based on the feedback you provided. So it's important that you are not just listening to feedback, you're also actioning the feedback. So that is a very important step as well. Now, step number 7, last step is reflect and improve. Now, I did want to call this out specifically because it's important that the mistake or ignorances that were happening in 1 or 2 sprint reviews are not being carried forwarded till the eternity. Right? There is an opportunity for you to change them. If you feel that the sprint review meeting, the format is not good, or we are not giving ample time to stakeholders to provide feedback, right? So you think the main purpose of the meeting is not getting solved, you can always go back and change the process, because that's what you should be doing. You should be reflecting upon it and then improving your process based on that to make sure that the main goal of sprint review meeting is met with. Maybe you might want to increase the time. Maybe you want to divide the stakeholders, because the stakeholders, those are part of the meeting, provide feedback with conflict with each other. Maybe you want to do separate meetings for a group of stakeholders, something like that. Or you might want to meet up with the stakeholder one-on-one after every sprint review. Or some stakeholders are extremely busy. Maybe you want to record a meeting for them, which I don't recommend most of the time, because many times people don't look at the recordings. But if that's the case, you can record it and then, set up a call with them to make sure you're gathering the feedback. So there are n number of things which you could improve if there is an opportunity to improve, conditional that you know what needs improving. And how will you know it? Once you start doing it. So it's important to have this meeting. It's important for you to be able to reflect on the meeting and then improve the processes based on that. Now, this brings me to the end of this video. So I hope this has been helpful. I hope you have taken the time to self-reflect on how you are running the sprint review meetings, if at all you are, because I know many PMs are not even running it. So I hope you've done that self-assessment and you understand the purpose of this meeting and whether you're doing it right or not. Okay, so do let me know via comments on what your experience has been in your current company. Otherwise, I'm going to see you all next week. Bye-bye.